In this video, we're going to show you how to install pads and rotors on your Ford Mustang located behind your front wheels. Now, when removing the center cap, you want to be careful not to damage the wheel face itself. There is a notch right here you can go ahead and put a pry tool into. I'm going to use a plastic trim and a small pry bar, and the purpose of this here is to protect the surface, that painted surface of the wheel. Using your 19mm socket, loosen and remove your lug nuts. With the lug nuts removed, remove the wheel and set it aside. On the top portion of your brake caliper, there's going to be a bleeder screw right here. We're going to use our 10mm wrench. We want to go ahead and loosen this. I'm going to loosen that just a tiny bit. And we should see brake fluid start to come out of this port here. Now we have brake fluid starting to seep out. Let's go ahead and close this. And we're going to use this bleeder screw to go ahead and compress our caliper once we remove it from our unit. When we remove our brake caliper from the bracket itself, there's going to be two 12mm bolts. There's one on the top here. You follow it down, there's one on the back side. You're going to use our socket and ratchet. And our pin here is sliding a little bit, so we're just going to hold that and remove that bolt and do the same for the bottom. When you use a small pry bar, go ahead and work that caliper up and set that on top. Now at this point, we can go ahead and flip this over. Now these dual pistons here, we want to go ahead and compress these until they're pretty much flush with the caliper itself. Going to install our tool here. Now we had opened up our bleeder screw to check it earlier, and what you want to do is apply pressure to those pistons, and when you open this up, it should allow you to compress those pistons and push that fluid out. So as you do this, just gently squeeze this and you'll see fluid come out of this here, and continue to do that until those pistons are recessed all the way in. Now that we have our pistons pressed in all the way, go ahead and close this up. Snug that. You can go ahead and remove your tool. Now let's go ahead and support our caliper off to the side here. You can remove our pads. On the back side of our caliper bracket, you're going to find two 15mm bolts. Go ahead and use your socket and ratchet to go ahead and loosen and remove these. Hold on to that bracket when you remove that bolt. Remove the bolt and then remove the bracket. Go ahead and grab that brake rotor, wiggle that off and set it aside. We want to make sure that our hub face is clean, so we're going to use our bristle brush and go ahead and clean all of this off, making sure that we have a smooth surface for our new rotor to sit on. I'm going to start by cleaning our caliper bracket here. Let's pop out our pad shims. On the other side, we have our slider pins. You want to grab these here and go ahead and slide those out. I'm going to use my bristle brush here, and I'm going to clean the inside where the sliders go. What you're doing here is you want to clean up any of the rust that might be built up in here. If it is scaly or some nuggets of rust, go ahead and use a small square file to go ahead and clean that up. You just want to clean the rust. Don't take away any metal that's there. Once you are satisfied with that, go ahead and flip it over and do the same to the other side. You're not only cleaning the grooves in here, but the outer landing pad right here. Use some solvent, give it a spray. Good, peel off the rubber boots where the slider pins go. I'm going to spray a little bit of solvent inside here. I'm going to use my bore brush on the inside and clean this out. Clean that out, wipe it down. When doing this here, this is cleaning out the inside of any rust or any old grease. Make sure you flush that out good. And repeat for the other side. I'm going to use the bristle brush and I'm going to clean up the ridge or the lip around here where the rubber boot seals up against. Ours isn't bad at all. And set that aside. You want to go ahead and grab your slider pins. Grab a towel, give that a wipe down. You want to do a visual inspection on this here. Make sure that there isn't any large chunks of rust in here causing any resistance issues from this pin sliding in and out on the caliper bracket itself. If there is any large pieces of rust, go ahead and clean that up. If it seems like the pin is damaged in any way, you want to go ahead and replace these. Use your bristle brush, go ahead and clean these. Give them a spray with some solvent and then wipe them down. Repeat for the other pin. Once you're done with the pins, go ahead and grab the rubber boots. Inspect the rubber boots. You want to check for any tears or anything like that that might be in there. Go ahead and give them a wipe down. If these are torn or split in any manner, you want to replace these. Use your finger to go ahead and push the boot up and out, extending that fully. Wipe down and inspect. Our boots are in good shape and reusable, so let's go ahead and reassemble the bracket. I'm going to take a little bit of a silicone paste here and put some on and in the port. Let's go ahead and pop our rubber boots into place. Next, take your slider pins and we want to put some of our silicone paste here on our slider pins. Now we don't want giant globs of it on there, just a thin coating. Go ahead, work that in and make sure that that is working nice and smooth. Do the same for this pin here. And we're going to push these in. And our slider pin will pop into the rubber boot. There's a groove on our pin. And for some reason, if it does not want to seat, we can always pop the rubber boot off. Slide that onto it. You can feel the rubber boot pop onto it. And then put the pin back in and press that boot on. We're going to do the same on this one here. It may feel like it's popping into place, but you definitely want to make sure it is fully engaged on that. So slide that pin in, go ahead and work that on. You're gonna feel it pop in where the slider pin is actually recessed beyond the rubber boot. That's what you're looking for. Slide that back in and then just roll that rubber boot down like so. Use a fresh rag and wipe down the excess grease. Now, if you want to, you can reuse your sliders here. You want to clean these up the best you can. The kit does come with new sliders here. Before installing those here, we're going to put a thin coat of grease here. Once again, thin, not globs of grease. I'm going to take our shims here, line this up. Push it down inside. You're going to feel them kind of snap into place. Go ahead and flip that over. We're going to do the same on this here. Put our thin coat of grease. we're ready for installation. With our hub face all cleaned up, we're going to put a little bit of anti-seize compound on the surface of the hub. Now that we have that on there, you can grab your brake rotor, line that up, and slide it into place. On the bottom side, I'm going to install a lug nut. This will hold the rotor flush with the hub where we can get our caliper and bracket on. Let's line up our caliper bracket, and we put some blue Loctite on the threads of our bolts here. Let's go ahead and get the bolts started. Now that we have our bolts started, let's go ahead and snug them down. Torque down our caliper bracket bolts to 85 foot-pounds. Now before we install our brake pads, a critical step here. I'm going to pop out one of the sliders here. The slider itself has a slight design on it where the retainer clip here goes on the outside. If you notice, the other side does not have one. So that gets placed on the outside. If you put it on the inside, this little spring clip will interfere with the rubber boot on the other side, and it will drag. So you want to make sure that the upper one also has the retainer clip on the outside as well. Now that you have that in position, take your brake pads. I'm going to line those up and slide those into place. Now at this point here, we can slide our caliper over on the top, and then we'll put our bolts in on the back side. Install the caliper. We put some blue Loctite on the bolts. Go ahead and install the lower bolt. Go ahead and snug these down gently. I'm going to torque down the caliper bracket bolts to 12.3 foot-pounds. Do the same for the bottom. Come on over to your bleeder screw, pop off the rubber cap. Use your 10 millimeter, open this up. And we're just going to wait for the brake fluid to come down the brake line, fill up the piston area itself, and then start to come out through the bleeder screw. And at this point, we can see brake fluid coming out, but we also see a couple bubbles coming out. We're going to give it a couple moments here. Once we see a steady stream of fluid coming out without any air bubbles, we'll go ahead and close this up. At this point here, the air bubbles seem to have dissipated. So let's go ahead and tighten this down. Go ahead and snug that. We're going to go ahead and spray that with some solvent. And then just wipe down the residual. Clean that up down underneath. Go ahead and install the rubber cap. At this point here, you want to hop into the vehicle, pump up the brakes, make sure you get a good solid brake pedal feel. If the brake pedal feels soft or spongy, you want to go ahead and proceed to a brake bleeding process. Install your wheel. Go ahead and get your lug nut started. And once we have those started, we can go ahead and snug those down. Once you have these snug, go ahead and lower the vehicle down, and let's torque those into position. Let's go ahead and torque our lug nuts to 95 foot-pounds. Go ahead and install your center cap.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.